Hey y'all, I'm Derek, and welcome back to 31 Days of Found Horror. So today, our movie's only 36 and a half minutes long. It came out 8 years ago and it's called Jenny's House. Alright, don't know what to expect. Probably a ghost story. Alright, let's get started. Alright, I actually liked it. So it starts with a disclaimer that says, not suitable for all audiences due to violence. So, alright, I like violence. Violence, woo! And then there's a word scroll, not much with the provenance, but with a police report explaining the lore of the film. So that was kind of unusual. Basically it said in March of 2011, there was a 911 call for a noise disturbance, and when the police get there, a guy says he killed his daughter Jenny. The body could not be found. Before the trial could start, he committed suicide, and his wife was committed to an asylum. And apparently, since there's no leads, the cops are giving the house back to the bank for foreclosure so they can sell it. Not sure how that works, but okay. Then it cuts to June 25th of the same year, the day before the house goes back to the bank. And there's 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, and they're about 13, 14 years old. So there's the main kid, James, there's the girl, Eliza, and then there's the camera kid named Rick. And James is explaining that they are going to spend the last night at the house, which they have access to because James's mother is actually in charge of the investigation. Oh really? Just so coinky dinky. James is going to go there with his 2 friends, and they're going to do a paranormal investigation because he really believes in ghosts and he wants this to be the proof that ghosts exist. It also is going to be the proof that your mom's going to be fired for incompetence. Then it cuts to James's mom actually driving them to the house, and she's like, now don't be making a mess because it's already been cleaned, and if there's a mess it's got to be cleaned up or else I'm in trouble because you're not supposed to be there. Yeah, they're not supposed to be there. Until you release it to the bank, it's still considered a crime scene. Even if you're not actively investigating, it is a crime scene. So she drops them off at the house and they go in and they're like, oh, this is really big, yeah. So they go in and they're just looking around. They show us the house. They don't go down to the basement, but they go everywhere else. So I'm like, okay, people finally learned, don't go in basements. They show us Jenny's room, they show us the office, and then James is like, okay, we're gonna hold a seance. So they go down in the kitchen, and James pulls out 8 tea candles and some matches. And he lines them up in a circle and they all hold hands. At this point, Rick, who's the camera kid, has set the camera up on a counter and then faces his back to the camera, completely blocking all of the action. This is one point that I had a lot of problems with. I'm sorry. I was just yelling, cheat out! Cheat out! For the love of God, show us what's going on. Honestly, it wasn't anything happening. They were just standing in a circle holding hands about to sing Kumbaya. And they're asking questions. They're like, is anybody there? And they hear a thump. And they ask another question. And they hear a thump. Oh. And then James asks, is this Jenny? No response. Ooh. And then they let go of the circle and they don't say goodbye to the spirit. How many times do I have to tell you? You have to say goodbye to spirits if you invoke them. Otherwise, they get pissed. And then there's a little snippet saying that the next few minutes of the film is corrupted, so it's being left out. But apparently something happened because the sun's gone down and there is no light, and they're all talking about how scared they are because of what just happened. Found footage nightmare. They didn't have the ability to actually do the effects they wanted to do, so they just cut the entire sequence out and expected everybody to be okay with it. Show don't tell. Well, they set up a flashlight. They brought exactly 1 flashlight for 3 people. And Rick is like, you're gonna get us all killed, James. Epic foreshadowing moment. And while they're in the living room, they hear a little girl upstairs yell, "Get out of my house!" and slam the door. And that, of course, freaks everybody out because why is there a little girl here? They were all alone before. They've been in that room. All I've got to say is, it's so nice that they decided to give Kid's sister a role in the movie. So James wants to go up and see what's going on. Everybody else is like, no, that's freaky. He's like, no, we gotta see, we gotta get proof. Okay, well, he basically blackmails them to coming because he takes the only flashlight. So they go up there and they're looking around, nobody's there. And so Rick says, in horror movies, there's usually someone in the closet. You go check it, James. And I agree with him. James, this is your pickle, you hold it. So they open up the closet, nothing's there, but then they turn around and there's a girl dressed like Reagan from The Exorcist. Ah! And they just bolt out of there. They all nope into the office. And there they're sitting there and they're just sitting there and they have the camera on the door and you're like, okay, something's gonna happen. Nothing happens. They do an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, and nothing happens. And they hear a dramatic music sting as Jenny, the ghost, crawls on the basement floor. You can see the basement from the top of the stairs. It's the way the house is set up. And I'm like, oh great. They scored it because they knew it wasn't going to be as effective as they thought it was going to be. Honestly, I think if they'd left it unscored, it would have been fine. And they decide, hey, we've never been to the basement. Let's go down to the basement, even though they just saw Jenny do the frickin' spider crawl across the floor because you know what? James is a frickin' idiot. He's like, she's trying to tell us something. We need to go see her. No, she's trying to scare you out of her house. Get out of her house. Then all of a sudden, Jenny attacks again, rah! And holds on to James, and Eliza and Rick just nope out of there. They literally nope out of the house, totally missing James. They get outside and they realize, oh crap, James is still in the house. And Eliza, who's been a scaredy cat the entire movie, they have to go back in and get him. And Rick is like, no, let's just call somebody. Call his mom. We gotta get out of here. Oh, James had both of the phones. Because I forgot to mention, he wanted to make sure that the phones remained off so that they didn't affect the EVP. So no matter what, they have to go in and get the phones. Eliza grabs a stick saying, how convenient. And seriously, she says, oh, well, this is convenient. And they slowly walk back into the house and back into the basement. And they get to the room where James was attacked. And they see the phones on the ground in what I hope is a pool of water because it really doesn't look like water in night vision. And then attack! Jenny attacks them. And they run out of the room and drop the camera. Thank you. They dropped it at the right place because the angle is perfect to see the door. And we see Jenny running after them and she kills them off screen. And that should be the end of the movie, but then we see just enough of James crawling out of the room. And he's crawling towards the camera and then Jenny comes up and kills him and walks back into the room holding her little dolly. And then there's a second police report saying none of the bodies were found and so another investigation is starting on the 27th. Honestly, I was amazed that this was made by kids because they actually followed the story very well. I mean, they had a clear, concise plot line and they executed it wonderfully. And it was so cute because they swore in this movie, but they bleeped it out. It was great. But I was just really amazed that these kids actually got together and made this movie by themselves. I ain't mad at it. I mean, it was pretty decent. As far as found footage goes, it isn't that bad. Well, have you seen this movie? If so, leave me a note down below. Tell me what you thought about it. And of course, if you want to see the movie, it'll be available in the description. So that's it for this episode of 31 Days of Found Horror. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. And come back tomorrow for another found footage nightmare.